my second week on the farm, we spent a lot of time preparing vegetable beds for all of the transplanting that we've been doing lately. The farmers market starts in the beginning of June, so we got to get everything in the ground before then. But alongside that, we've also had to keep up with the usual harvesting. So on that day, I was harvesting some kale, which is pretty satisfying to snap off, and cutting through the ends is always super satisfying. Tu corazón con el mío, luna llena menguante. After that day, we just spent some time potting up. I think these were squash plants, or maybe melons, because those needed to go into bigger pots before they could go in the ground, which happened just recently, since I'm editing this 2 weeks later. It was actually my birthday, the first birthday I spent away from my family or friends. So the wonderful people I work with let me go pretty early that day, and I took myself up to this hot springs and read my book and tried to block out all of the noise that was occurring in the pool next to me, because there's a family with like 8 tiny children splashing around. We spent most of our time prepping beds for transplanting. So we set up a lot of drip irrigation. The farm I'm on primarily uses drip irrigation to water their plants, which is really important, especially in Idaho, where agriculture uses an extortionate amount of the state's fresh water, and it's a very dry climate, so using sprinklers and stuff can result in wasting a lot of water that gets evaporated. And drip irrigation is also good for helping out with some pest problems. So Jessica taught me how to set that up that day. You just string out these lines and then attach the heads to the main line, which was surprisingly difficult. We had a little bit of trouble getting this one into the main line. Prepped that one bed, then we started transplanting some baby lettuces, and these were really fun because they had very small roots, so you could just basically poke a hole in the soil and stuff them in. And then after that, we had to cover with some row cover, because since we're out in the high mountain desert, it gets really cold at night, and even in recent weeks we've been almost getting down to freezing. So it's important to cover plants and make sure they stay warm, and also protects them from the wind. After lunch, we started setting up the beds for brassica transplanting. So since brassicas, like cauliflower, kale, and stuff, get pretty big, and we can't just lay the row cover on top of them, we have to make basically little hoop houses out of these pipes. So me and Jessica spent the afternoon drilling holes and shoving these pipes in. Apparently, Jessica and her partner that own this farm have tried many ways to get these hoop tips in, and have settled on using this machine called an auger, which drills holes in. But before this, then they were using just a piece of like crowbar, metal, I don't know what it's called, and a hammer that you'd hammer in and then kind of wiggle around to make the hole bigger, and I tried doing it by hand once, and it was challenging. This was a couple weeks ago before we got any rain either, so the soil was super dry, so I was struggling a bit. And I had to do it a couple times, and I still didn't really get the hoop that deep in there. After I got off work that day, I was pretty hot and I had no other plans for the afternoon, so I headed down to the river again and I did a little bit of painting. I've been painting this card for my grandma for like 2 months and never really got around to finishing it, but I finally finished that day. The next day was May 12th, which was a Friday, so we started off the day by doing a little harvest for the local market. So here I'm just bagging up some greens, some spinach to sell. After that, we transplanted the brassicas that we'd prepped the beds for the day before. Those hoops get covered up with row cover that keep the brassicas warm and protect them from the wind without squishing them. Friday was a big day. It was potato planting day. So all of these beds had been prepped previously so that there were all these divots in them, and we spent the first hour or two in the morning just sorting through potatoes and chopping the huge ones in half so that you could plant both. The key is just to make sure that each potato part you're planting has at least 2 eyes in it. And then we were going for about 1 foot spacing, so we just walked down the rows, popping the potatoes into the divots. After we laid out all of the rows, everyone took a hoe or a rake and just pulled the dirt on top, and then they got some water, and now they've been growing.